Nice. Perfectly in tune, perfectly synced. Well done. It's almost like we have 268 shows under our belt. What is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 269.
We're up there.
Uh-huh.
It's happening.
It is happening. Thank you for your patience here getting the show started a little bit past 6. But our guest tonight, she's waiting patiently. We're very excited to have her on. It's kind of a continuation of last week's episode with Jason Koop. But tonight we're going to talk all about food, nutrition, what works for ultra endurance, what works for certain people, bro science, and are the myths true about diet and nutrition, and what's good for us, what should we be focused on. Our guest tonight, Maria Dalzot, is going to talk to us all about food. This is one of those shows that's long overdue on this show. We talk about nutrition a lot on this show regarding ultra marathons and that sort of thing, but tonight we have an expert. We actually have a resident dietitian on the show tonight. What? Registered resident dietitian, registered dietitian.
Race director.
I made this mistake last week.
All sorts of RDs.
We're going to be picking her brain and hopefully getting schooled a little bit tonight, because I think there's a lot of just bad info out there, myself included. I will dive into those. I'll spend like hours on the internet, like, oh wait, well maybe this is what I should do. Maybe this will make me faster if I only ate this way or did that.
Celery juice only.
I can't wait to run an ultra with just celery juice water bottles. Oh, that sounds terrible. Welcome, everyone, to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 269. The show begins now. Ginger Runner. Yay! What is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 269. Thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your busy Mondays to spend a little bit of it with us. We're very appreciative. We're very appreciative of you guys joining us tonight. It's going to be a fun show. You can tell. I'm excited. Because apparently my beer is just going straight to my vocal cords or my tongue and my lips, because words aren't happening well. Tonight, we are going to continue a little bit of some of the conversations we had on last week's episode with Jason Koop, talking about training and preparing for big races. And we started to dabble a little bit with food and science behind food and nutrition for individuals and what works for some people. Our guest tonight, Maria Dalzot, is a registered dietitian, not resident dietitian. I'm thinking like resident nurse or resident doctor, RD.
We also learned about the spelling of dietitian today.
Yeah, I spelled it wrong. I think that's learning.
Apparently there was like, I dug a little deeper, and apparently that was a correct way to spell dietitian at some point.
Like the 1800s?
Maria might have better insight into this once we get her on.
So much insight. So much light is going to be shined on this topic of food. I'm excited to have Maria on the show tonight, because I think there's a lot of bad science. There's bad marketing. There's trendy things happening with diet and nutrition. And there's a lot of marketing and a lot of money in this industry that are gearing and pushing athletes into a certain direction or certain directions in hopes that athletes will get faster or more efficient and all that sort of thing. And, again, this is one dietitian out of, I'm sure, many, but I want to start getting some facts in here and getting some science-based studies behind these facts. But I think having someone like Maria on tonight will help a lot in figuring out what works for some people and maybe some general misconceptions, myths, and stuff. I think this will be great.
Yeah, and just a reminder, we are live. We do have Maria here with us. We'll be bringing her on in just a second. But if you guys have questions for Maria, you can pop them in the chat room. We'll be keeping an eye on that thing tonight.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to get lots of live questions. And I kind of prepped Maria ahead of time, just saying, you're going to get a lot of live questions, which is great. Be prepared, because you might get some very specific ones. You might get some more general ones. She's fully ready. So before we introduce our wonderful guest tonight, of course, we have some individuals that we'd like to thank for helping to make this show happen. Again, we are live every single Monday, have been for almost 6 years now, almost 6 years. Every single Monday, missing maybe 2, 3. You could probably count them on one hand, which is pretty respectable. But that is because of our Patreon crew. Our supporters at patreon.com/thegingerunner. They are the reason we're able to do these shows, reviews, live films, everything every week. We're just incredibly thankful to this community that has supported us for years now, making this all a reality. 3 individuals in particular at that top tier. Chris Lee out of Hong Kong has an organization called Trailblazer that showcases the incredible trails that Hong Kong has to offer. If you find yourself traveling there or racing there. The Hong Kong 100 takes place there. A lot of really beautiful, beautiful races. Reach out to Chris or his organization Trailblazer. They'll take you under their wing. They have a cool brick and mortar with gear, and they'll also show you some trails that you can get access to just right outside of the city. Rick Bjarnason and his team at cheekymonkeymedia.ca. They are a web design company specializing in sites of all sizes. My site, gingerrunner.com, they completely redid it, made it really easy for me to update, which is hugely important to me. And they did a great job. Rick is also an ultra runner. That's kind of how we all found each other. He watches the show regularly, also runs regular ultras, ran Tiger Claw this year, and just finished the Sinister 7, which is a stout Canadian 100-miler, training now also for the Fat Dog 120, which is taking place here very soon. So big shout out to Rick and his team. And finally, Brian Sands, longtime supporter of the show. Brian has this inspiring journey. He's lost over 100 pounds in his journey in running. Started at about 50 years old, ran his first marathon, first 50K, now currently training for another 50K, 100K, I believe. Just the dude is setting goals and crushing them and inspiring everyone in the process. Wonderful human. So big shout out to Brian as well. Okay. Without further ado, I would like to welcome to the show, finally, a good friend of ours and also placed at Tiger Claw, by the way. Placed second at Tiger Claw.
Amongst many other outstanding race
we had a
results.
Huge, just badass field of elite athletes run our inaugural Tiger Claw this year. And she got second place. You'll notice the trophy behind her. Without further ado, the one and only Maria Dalzot.
Yay!
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're doing great.
You're looking much more like yourself.
Thank you.
Today.
Thank you.
Can you catch everyone up a little bit as to what's been going on the last week?
Well, let's see. I was potentially supposed to be on the show last Monday night, but I was out for a second run on Sunday night, just a 4-mile easy run close to home. And I was running along and it felt like a rock came up and hit me in the face. And I didn't think anything of it. I didn't even stop running. I had about a mile to get back to the car. And when I got back to the car, my eyes started swelling up. I broke out into hives immediately, just itching like crazy. And then I went home, took a bunch of Benadryl, thinking that that would be enough to kind of stop the swelling. And I woke up the next morning and both eyes were swollen shut. And I had to go to the emergency room. And so I was in bed for like 2 days trying to make my eye swelling go down, but I was completely unrecognizable. And it was, everyone had a good laugh at my expense once everyone knew I was okay. But I am okay, and I will be picking up my EpiPen tomorrow because actually the race I'm running on Saturday, I got stung there last year, but it was in the butt, so I was okay. But I will be ready to go this weekend should I get stung again.
I am really disappointed you weren't able to make the show last week, despite, I mean, if you go look at Maria's Twitter, you'll see a photo of, it doesn't even look like her.
We looked at the photo for a very long time, knowing Maria, and we're like, we can't see her in there. Yeah, what is going on here?
Couldn't even see your face behind the face. Like there was no
bizarre.
Maria. It was bizarre.
It was bizarre. Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're okay.
So glad you're okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I want to start off just by, again, congratulating you on that little Tiger Claw trophy in the background. You are not only a registered dietitian, but you are also a badass ultra athlete. Can we talk a little bit about your running history and sort of what got you into the sport? When did you start, especially with ultras and mountains and stuff?
Yeah, I've been a runner, my entire life. Tag was my favorite game growing up in school. I started running competitively when it was first offered cross country, 11 years old. So I've been running for over 20 years now, which sounds crazy. Running is what allowed me to survive high school. And then I had some success in high school, which allowed me to run on scholarship, NCAA Division I cross country and track for West Virginia University, which is where I'm from, West Virginia. And then I was getting injured a lot on the track and on the roads. And I found that running on the trails was a lot kinder to my body, and my mechanics just suited the trails a lot better. And so I started running more trails and just started having an affinity to the trail running scene. And I started running more trail races. And then just through building up a resume, I started running for the shoe company La Sportiva. So I've been with La Sportiva now for 5 or 6 years. I can't quite remember how long, but so under their support, I've had the wonderful honor of representing the U.S. on 5 mountain running teams. I was the North American mountain running champion in 2011 and won the National Trail Half Marathon Championships in 2014.
Yeah.
So and it's been just the past 2 years or so, I've been starting to dabbling in ultra runs. So that's been a whole different animal and beast to take on. So I've had a very fortunate career, not without injury. I've broken my feet 3 times and had, you name it, I've had it. But running is my life's number one passion, but food is a very close second. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's obvious that you have quite the experience both in competition, and I'm excited to find out more about sort of the professional side of Maria as a registered dietitian. But Kim, you have some questions already.
Yeah, we have a couple running related questions before we dive into the
sure.
I mean, we have a conversation going on in the chat room right now of how much peanut butter is too much peanut butter, crunchy peanut butter, smooth peanut butter, almond butter. There's all sorts of. So before we dive into all that, there's a great question from Nathaniel in the chat room. Nathaniel says, Maria, you've discussed living with anxiety, including fears of driving alone, crossing bridges, and being stuck in closed spaces. How do you overcome these obstacles, and does running play a role?
Oh man, thank you, Nathaniel, for that question. That's following along closely. Yes, and like Ethan, I'm very open with my anxiety, and it's funny getting ready for the show. I actually have a lot of anxiety. Right now, I'm running the Volcanic 50 on Saturday, and I ran it last year, and my anxiety totally took over. Everything about that race brings up feelings of panic for me, and so I'm going back to conquer my, those inner demons. So I'm going back there Saturday, but it is not easy. You have good days, you have bad days. I know what my triggers are. I know that if I don't get enough sleep, that can be a trigger for anxiety. I know that if I drink too much caffeine, if I go over what my limit of coffee is, I turn into Chicken Little, and all of a sudden, I'm waiting for the sky to fall. So, and then other times it is unpredictable, but, yeah, I'm not going to lie. I struggle almost every day. Like sometimes it's a success to cross the street. Every race I'm worried about getting lost and dying and being alone. So everyone look for me at Volcanic 50, and the race starts at 7 a.m. This is great. So everyone knows that if something happens to me, come find me around Mountain Helens. I'll be there. But I am very fortunate. I have an extremely supportive husband, and it's taken him years. He doesn't fully understand because he does not live with anxiety himself, but he is very patient, and he knows when to push me. And sometimes we'll be out running, a lot of the times up in the mountains, and he's the one who takes those awesome photos of me. But what you don't see is that I'm like literally crying in between shots because I'm so nervous. But he pushes me a lot of the times. And then what happens is that I get so mad at him because I'm like, this is not fun anymore. I want to turn around, and my anxiety turns to anger. And then I start hating him, and I'm like, oh, fine. I start, just saying a lot of nasty things. And I'm like, if I die, it's all your fault. You're going to have to live with it for the rest of your life. And it just turns ridiculous. And then I'm just like, fine. And the anxiety turns to anger. And then I overcome, I climb that peak or whatever it is. And then I'm like, oh, well, that wasn't a big deal. But no, it's every day I struggle with it. And I also got actually on medication. I started in March, and that has been enough to take the edge off. And I feel like I am more myself on a day-to-day basis. And that has been awesome. So if I need a Xanax before bed tonight after this show, I'm ready to go.
Well, I mean, that's one thing that you and I have actually talked about that in person. One of the first times that we had actually met, checking at 50K, and I had just sort of been open with my dealings with anxiety. I've sort of hidden it in my films in the past, but it was one of the first times I'd really come out and just been like, listen, I have a really difficult time running. I don't know why. I haven't been able to pinpoint my triggers. I don't really know what's going on, but it's something I'm dealing with. And a lot of people were able to relate to that. And when I saw Maria at Chuckanut, it was one of those like, one, you were kicking so much ass. It was at an aid station. I think you were already like doubling back or something. And you're like, hey, I just needed to stop you and let you know that as someone who also deals with anxiety, what you've been saying is just amazing. And like, I was like, oh my God, another person. There was a really cool bonding moment of me knowing that I'm not alone. And it was just this really cool, like, even elites can deal with shit. But I just wanted to thank you, Maria, for being such a great source of honesty in dealing with your anxiety. And it was wonderful for me to meet someone who also deals with it at that elite level. And just my eyes opened up to this whole community of people who deal with it openly. And so I really very much appreciate your sharing that with me and the show and everything.
Likewise, Ethan. Likewise.
So we do have some live questions for Maria, and let's get to some of that before we start diving into the nutrition nitty gritty, like peanut butter.
There's also a lot of questions coming in. I'm like, I don't even know what. I'm not familiar with some of these diet questions that are coming in, so I'm very interested to see when we actually dig in a little here. Let's see here.
I can go into it if you want me to go into it.
No, there's one more question just running related, and then
sure,
maybe we can dive in. This question comes from Joel. Joel says, gotta ask this one right out of the starting gate. How do you personally deal with demons during a long race? And what would be your advice to someone regarding this topic?
Oh man, so many demons. That's a great question, Joel. Let's see. Gosh, I think knowing that that it will pass, and knowing that what happens to me, and I don't know if you're talking about demons of anxiety or panic, but when I embrace it, and this is what I'm actually going to practice on Saturday. It's a long, slow 50K. It runs like a 50-miler. And I know that I'm going to get in a situation where I'm up on a ridge or, something that's going to be triggering. And the best way is getting in that bring it on mentality, like embrace it. If whatever's going to happen, bring it on. I'm ready for it. Let's do it. If I'm gonna die today, which is ridiculous, but that's what I think. If I'm gonna die doing what I love, around the best people in the world, around people who are like-minded individuals who are out there sharing this passion for running. And so I would challenge those demons, to answer your question. I would challenge them, and I'm going to take my own advice on Saturday. And when those thoughts creep in, I'm going to say, "Bring it on! Is this all you got?" And I'm going to run through it and see if that's enough to squash those voices and to get over that.
Awesome. That's definitely a mental note that we've talked about similar sort of picking it on like that, of like embracing it and letting it in and conquering it that way. And yeah, it's definitely it's a process for sure. And I love that sort of mentality especially going into the Volcanic 50, which I know you have experience at, but experiments at on Mount St. Helens. You're gonna crush it on Saturday. I can't wait to see what you do.
Thank you.
So I want to start getting into the professional side of Maria, career-wise, dietitian, registered dietitian. Let's start first, because this term gets thrown out a lot, like a nutritionist versus a dietitian.
Yes.
So what is the separation? How do you differentiate between the two?
And I'm very quick to differentiate. When people call me a nutritionist, technically it's correct, but I worked very hard for that registered dietitian credential. So I politely maneuver people towards the registered dietitian title. And the very basic difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian is that anybody can be a nutritionist. You guys can take an online course or read something that, you can have experience with nutrition and set up your own thing, and you can call yourself a nutritionist. There is no protection for the public under the term nutritionist. This differs between to a registered dietitian, whereas I've gone to school for 6 years to become a registered dietitian. I had to go through 1,200 hours of supervised clinical practice under supervision. in addition to 1,200 hours of practice, I have to do continuing education to maintain those credentials. But I had to take a registration exam to get those credentials in the first place. And we are under a code of ethics as registered dietitians. And none of this protection exists for somebody who calls themselves a nutritionist. So basically, it's protection for the public. You know, you're getting somebody who has gone through the schooling. And really, my personal definition, usually a registered dietitian, like I consider myself a nutrition agnostic. And that's kind of what I wanted to start out by saying here today, is that I am not here to push any way of eating on anybody. I don't have any agenda. One thing I first and foremost tell my clients is, I am not the expert of you. And if you talk to somebody and they're quick to be like, oh, I know exactly what you need. I know exactly what you need to eat to look and feel and run your best. That should bring up alarm bells, because they don't live in your body. Only you live in your body. And so I am not the expert of you. Only you can be the expert of you. And oftentimes, after following so much, and now I'm already getting into the rant, so just reel me in whenever you want. But so often we get so caught up in diet culture that we forget that we're the expert of our bodies, and we lose trust in ourselves. And so it's my job to be your guide, to help instill in you the confidence to make decisions that are best for you and only you, because again, only you live in your body.
So I can already see the questions popping up in my head. I love that you were able to clarify that, because I think it's really easy to go, oh, this person's a nutritionist. I am going to listen to whatever they have to say. That's just a good consumer red flag to know. Look for registered dietitian, because there's obviously education involved. You said 1,200 hours of actual. Yeah. So there's a long process.
Yeah, it is a long process. Yes.
I'm also really curious to sort of figure out. I grew up with food issues. I talk obviously very openly to you about my food issues and body images and all that sort of thing. And I think a lot of people have their own food issues. Maybe they don't realize it yet. Maybe they're realizing it now in real time, or maybe they have realized it for a long time and they're working through that. How would you, because you take clients, I'm assuming.
Yes, I do.
So if someone comes to you with, maybe they don't know they have a food issue, or maybe they're talking about something in a specific way, or I only eat blank, or that sort of scenario, do you try to identify that and help them work through it, or what's the process?
Yes. And that's a great thing to point out, because this term that I use, diet culture, and basically diet culture is this narrow standard of beauty that we're often told that we need to achieve, or that prizes thinness, and it leaves people vulnerable, because they think, oh, in order to be valuable, I need to look a certain way, or I need to, be a certain way. And so a lot of the times the way people talk, we're so steeped in diet culture that we don't even realize the effect that it has on us. And a great example of that would be when the three of us were talking, and I kind of called you out, Ethan, on your quickie question quiz. I kind of gave you hell about that a little bit, because on your question,
rightfully so.
Your question, what is your favorite post-race indulgence, insinuated that in order to indulge, you had to race, you had to earn your food. And if there's one thing that you guys can take away from me tonight, it's that you do not need to earn your food. You do not need to run a certain distance. You do not need to be good. This is how you stay alive. You do not need to earn it. So just even that is how steeped in diet culture we are, is that we have these very subtle reminders that are in our subconscious that we're not even aware of. And so a lot of the times with my consults, it just comes about through talking, and a lot of the times when people see a dietitian, they see one because they want to be told what to do. Give me my meal plan, tell me what to eat, tell me what I can do to run faster. And I won't do that, because number one, I don't live in your body. I don't have your likes, your dislikes, your stress level, your sleep, your spouse, your kids. I don't know you. So I am not in a position to tell you what you should be eating. Also, I lost my thought. What were we talking about? we were talking about. See, I'm going to get on these. This is what's going to happen.
But that's okay, because everything you're saying, I'm like nodding my head, going yes, yes. You had called us out on the quickie question.
They want to be told what to do,
right?
And I'm not going to do that because. And the second point is, you're not a robot. You are not a machine. And a lot of the times, these books, I've gotten questions of certain books. What do you think about this book? What do you think about this book? And they just spit numbers at you. You're not a number. You are a living, breathing human that experiences different times of your life. We haven't really talked about my specialty, but I specialize in intuitive eating. And intuitive eating across the lifespan. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Froze for a second. Okay.
Yeah.
And so making sure that people don't become static in the way that they eat and so caught up on one thing, but it comes about in conversation, and it's not quick, and I'm not going to tell you the answer, and that actually turns a lot of people away because they want the answer, but that is not being helpful to you. That is just a crutch, and I'm here to supply the tools that you need, again, to figure out what is best for me as I change, as I get older, as my body changes shape. Think about your teenage body versus your 20-year-old body versus your 30, 40, 50. It's completely different. And so you cannot compare, when I was 20, I could do this. When I was 30, I could do this. Well, yeah, but you're not there now. So you need to move with the times. You need to adjust with that. And that's why I don't give people numbers or just hard, I don't do meal plans, because every day is different. Every day is different. I will not do that, and I can go on and on about that.
Well, that brings up like interesting questions for me. So as someone who I have looked at food differently in the last couple of years, because I have seen my body change despite the fact that my athleticism hasn't really changed. So I've been doing the same sort of mileage each week, and
right.
I'm not seeing the same results that I was when I was in my early 30s, despite maybe the training being the same. And I know that there's a lot of factors here, whether it's sleep or stress. I know my workload has increased exponentially, but maybe my food has changed and that sort of thing. But if someone comes to you with a goal, do you help analyze that goal and go, why is that your goal? Or is it like, if I wanted to say I wanted to lose that 10 pounds to get back to where I was even a year ago, or that sort of thing, do you first try to identify the root of that want and diffuse it, or what's your strategy?
Absolutely. There's a couple ways we can go with this. The first thing I want to differentiate is the difference between a goal and a value. And this is something that is huge, because a lot of the times people mistake nutrition or health as a goal. And it's not a goal, it's a value. That would be like saying, my goal is to not be a liar. And if you told the truth today or didn't lie, you can cross it off your list. You're done. Well, that's not true. You want to be truthful for all your life, right? So a goal is something that you check off. And health, nutrition is not something that you check off a to-do list. You can't cross a finish line. It is a value, which means it's something that is always at your disposal. It is always something that you can nourish. It's something that is not to be perfected. It is something that can be worked on day after day after day. And I think when people reestablish that perspective of, hey, this is my value. I'm not going to fail at this. This is something that is lifelong. This is something that I need to nourish. This is not something that I just need to cross off my to-do list. When we reframe it into those terms, it becomes people become even more at peace, because it's like the pressure's not there. It's like, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to figure this out tomorrow. You have to eat for the rest of your life. You don't have to get it right tomorrow. You don't have to get it right ever. This is an ongoing process. Right. So that's one way of one thing that I call to people's attention. And that's actually in alignment with, I'm actually going to start coaching trail runners as well. And the first thing that we're going to do, it's going to be under the same kind of what I do with nutrition consults. It's first and foremost establishing what are your values. Because if you ever have a question of, should I do this, should I do that? We go back to your values. Is this in alignment with the way you want to live? Then if it's not, then we're not doing it. For example, I had someone who was questioning about the coaching thing, and she's like, I love my dogs. They're really important to me, and I love to go on adventures with them. And, I don't want to, that was a value of hers. And so bringing that to my attention, I know that if she chooses an adventure with her dogs versus a workout I assigned, that's her value. I respect that. That is her living in alignment with her values. And that's different than if she, missed her workout because she was watching Stranger Things on Netflix and didn't want to leave the house, right? So I can hold her accountable while respecting what's truly important for her. So regardless of if it's nutrition consulting or coaching, it's establishing those values. And to get back to your question of, if somebody has a weight specific question, it's asking first why. Right. And like why, and usually if you ask why 5 times in a row, we get down to, it could be something very elusive, like I want to lose weight. But if you keep whittling it down to the very core of it, it's, I want to be healthy for my children. I want to be a good example for my children. And so when we take, cut away the superficial layers and get onto what is really important, it's like, all right, that's what your goal is. How can I be, a good role model for my children to grow up with a good relationship with food? And so oftentimes it starts weight centric, and I switch it so that it's what's really in alignment with what they value in life.
That's really fascinating to sort of hear that. I love hearing the process behind it, because it's so easy to go, oh, someone comes to you with, I want to lose 10 pounds, I want to lose 50 pounds. And you can go, well, great, here's some things that we can do to adjust to make that happen. But the reality is that is putting a Band-Aid on potentially what is the actual want, which is I want to be healthy for my kids. It's like, great, now we can look at making delicious meals for the family and get outside more, that sort of thing. Love it. I can distill this down even to more further questions, but Kim has been so patient. Tons of questions. Go ahead.
Let's see. There are so many questions. Actually, people in the chat room are right now talking about kind of the psychology behind running something and feeling like you earned it, or you get a reward. And they're talking about how that kind of goes back to childhood, like getting candy or sweets or something for like being good, or so that's very fascinating too.
Yes, for sure.
Let's see here. Nathaniel in the chat room has another great question. He says, Maria, you've said that when we widen perspective and redefine what food and health mean to us, we have a healthier and more positive relationship with food. Can you elaborate on this relationship?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. Oftentimes in the context of food, we think of calories. It's a very dichotomous way of thinking. It's very black and white. It's very, food is energy. It is calories. It is carbs, fat, and protein. And again, we get kind of honed in onto this robotic way of thinking. But when we kind of zoom out and think about everything that food is, in addition to, yes, it is energy, but it's so much more than that. It's the way we communicate with others. It's the way we, celebrate holidays. It is cultural. I always tell people I'm too Italian to be gluten-free. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, that is not, that would be just, I can't imagine. And I'm not going to do that, because spending time with my family and partaking in these foods that are not seen in the diet cultural eye as quote unquote healthy, I'm not going to not eat those, because they do give me an emotional response. And that's something I get a lot. I'm an emotional eater. And oftentimes it's seen as a bad thing, but I want you to think of it as a good thing. Because think about it, when we're babies, what's the first thing that we do to get comforted? We eat, right? And so it's only natural that we look to food to be comforted. And look at food compared to other options. If you're turning to food to be comforted, that's a hell of a lot better than looking to alcohol or drugs to be comforted. So it makes sense that food provides this comfort to you. And I can eat a certain pasta dish and it reminds me of my grandfather who passed away when I was 7. That's extremely powerful. So food keeps people alive. That's incredible. My mom lives across the country. And so when I miss her, all I have to do is chop garlic and my hands smell like her. And I'm like, Mom, it's a really cool thing. And so it becomes a problem when food is the only tool in your toolbox that you have to cope. And that's when it's helpful to work with a professional to help you to get more coping mechanisms. But emotionally eating in and of itself is not bad. It's not, and that's again something that I try to redefine for people. It's because food is also a love language for people. And another kind of quick and personal story. When I was in college, I went through a phase where I'm like, I need to eat, perfectly to run my best. And my grandmother would make dinner every Sunday night for all my aunts and uncles and cousins. There'd be 20 of us around the dinner table, just scooting around the lazy Susan. And I would show up having already eaten because my grandma's food wasn't good enough for me. And my grandma was not a super loving, nurturing person. And the way she showed her love was through her food. And by me not eating her food, I was not speaking her language. Food was her love language. And so I look back on that now and I'm like, I who knows how I hurt my grandmother by not eating her food or being, having these silly thoughts that by abstaining from her meal, I was somewhat going to be better. Whereas I missed out on the opportunity to bond with my grandma.
Interesting. Kim has another question. Pull aside.
Yeah.
Question from Amber in the chat room. Amber says, when a person has a goal of losing weight, should the scale be used often, once a week, or not as often, once a month? Any thoughts on scales?
I feel like I know where this is going to go.
Oh man, burn that thing.
And we also have some people saying like, I get on the scale every morning, or we don't own a scale.
Oh man, please. Get rid of it. If that scale has the power to make or break your day, if you're giving that scale the power to, is today going to be a good day or a bad day? Is that really healthy? I mean, stop and think about it. If this machine that is not even accurate, that it is it is not indicative of health. Again, my question to you is why? Why is that necessary? Why is all your goals being put into this number on a scale? That is what I would want to ask. That tells you nothing. Weight is not indicative of health. And again, if you have this preoccupation with how much you weigh on that scale, which fluctuates every freaking day of your life, that is not healthy. And I'm being really blunt. If we work together, I'll be a lot more, empathetic to your situation. But please, my goodness, that is just, what does it do for you? How does that benefit you would be my question for you.
Yeah. And before, I'll also caveat this by saying before the show, I did tell Maria, like, if you get questions that are, the answer to, like, don't hesitate to just get right to the answer. I realize, and Maria said it there, that the answer is probably more nuanced. And I know that I had a connection with the scale for years, and it's many, many people in my life were like, get rid of it. And I know you had a relationship with the scale for a long time in your modeling days.
Lived in a modeling apartment. Yep. And that was part of your lifestyle, a super unhealthy relationship with food in your body, and you were weighing and you're being judged every morning. So we don't do the scale thing here.
It was hard. It's hard to get rid of that sort of thing because it does become a part of your life or routine. It's like social media where you want to scroll and see.
Yep.
So yes, just understand that Maria understands the nuance of everyone's relationship with like a scale and that sort of thing. But I told her before the show, like, let's get into this. Let's have some fun. And as she says as well, if you're a client, it'll be different. I got a little update on my computer here. Go ahead.
Just quickly, just to dovetail off that, Mike in the chat room says, I use the scale before and after long runs to see how much hydration I'm losing. I lose too much water. Any ideas? Is that
old school technique used at like Western states has long since been abandoned? But what's your theory on that stuff?
That is a very old school kind of way to figure it out. My hesitation with that, Mike, is that I feel like it can be a slippery slope, and that your good intention of oh, I'm just doing this to see how much water weight I've lost or how much I need to drink, could be something that could become a little more, oh, I'm just curious. What about today? What about today? What about today? And so I can understand the good intentions behind it, but I would just be afraid that it would turn into a disordered behavior if, taken too literally. So as far as hydration goes, your best bet is to look at your pee. Honestly, if you have trouble peeing after your long run, or if it's dark or really concentrated, you're dehydrated. If you're able to go every 2 to 3 hours and it's a pale, lemonade-esque like color, you're golden. If it's super clear and you're going all the time, you're overhydrated. Honestly, it's that simple. You don't have to get, it's really easy to get so nerdy about all of this, but honestly, look at your pee.
I just did. So I want to talk, let's start taking this into the conversation with endurance and with ultra running, and specifically like how we can look at fueling maybe differently. But before we get into those more detailed analysis, I want to get a bigger picture of, are there rules or factoids that you sort of live by? I know with this diet culture that you brought up, there's so much talk about low carb, no carb, high fat, no gluten,
intermittent fasting.
There's all these terminologies that are being marketed and thrown around as the next great thing. Do you have any rules or guidelines that you follow that fall into any of these caveats, or do you want to destroy some myths now?
Honestly, the only rule is that there are no rules, and I again, it's back to that black and white thinking. Nutrition is not black and white. It's 50,000 shades of gray. There's nothing that's good or bad. And so one thing that I'm quick to call out people, if you refer to a good food as good or a bad food as bad, I will call you out on that. Food is not good or bad. Stop attaching morality to a food. Eating a good food does not make you a good person or better than your partner. Eating a bad food doesn't make you a bad person. So just again, it's bringing that awareness, that mindfulness of, how am I talking to myself? How am I perceiving food? So and again, this diet culture can kind of mask these like elimination or detox diets as wellness, when again, it's just a disguised diet. That's all it is. And I will never support a diet, because all they do is damage your mental health and hurt your physical health in the process.
I'm realizing that there's also some questions coming in on the pee comments, and I feel like because we have a dietitian here, let's actually talk a little bit about that. One question regarding what happens, what if you don't pee throughout like a 50K, so you don't actually get a good look at what color you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And then the second question was,
what's the issue with overhydrating?
Yeah, what about overhydrating? And I heard clear pee was a good thing.
Yes. So the first of 50K, a 50K is a short enough distance that I wouldn't be concerned if you didn't have to stop and go to the bathroom. Honestly, my biggest concern is your nutrition around the run. And again, there are exceptions. 100-miler, 50-miler, everything in between is a different can of worms. But if we're talking 50K and under, we want to talk about nutrition around the run. Are you going into it adequately hydrated? Are you rehydrating after the run? So something like a 50K, like I don't want to stop in the middle of a 50K to go to the bathroom. So I make sure afterwards I'm getting properly hydrated. So that's for the 50K distance. For overhydration, I think Coop mentioned it. If I remember correctly, last week he talked about the dangers of overhydration, and clear pee consistently, I would be hesitant about. You want some color, but if you're constantly peeing clear, that means you're just flushing everything out of you. So things like your electrolytes or your water-soluble vitamins, you won't be maintaining anything if you overhydrate. And then if you take it to the extreme level, it could result into, just terrible situations like coma, or in like the really, really bad death if really overhydrated. But that is an extreme example. That's not impossible, but very extreme.
So I want to start getting into we deal with ultra marathons, we deal with long distances. We just talked about 50K, but we're also talking about distances beyond that. And, you know, I would even say marathons are in there too. We're dealing with a lot of road marathon season and stuff like that. So nutrition wise, do you have guidance for athletes? Is it like a calorie per hour thing we've heard a lot about? Does the quality of ingredients matter? Does a sugar gel make a difference? Let's start getting into that.
Yeah. So first and foremost, everybody is different. And so when people come and ask me, you know, what should I eat for a run? My answer is, I don't know, you know, because you might like raisins and sweet potatoes. If I did that, all I'd be running to is the porta potty. Like, I cannot do that. I need goos and chomps and give me everything that's like synthetically made. But I actually created exclusively for the Ginger Runner crew, everyone watching tonight. I figured that this was going to be a question. And because there's so many variables that come into play when figuring out how much should I eat, and these variables are like height, weight, genetics, your fitness level, exertion, speed, altitude, humidity, temperature, how far you've gone, how far you have to go, I actually created a template where you can start to document, this is what I did during this long run. This was the temperature. This was the humidity. This was how much gain was there. This is what I ate. Did it work? Did it not work? Nutrition is so difficult because it's an experiment of one. And so it's up to you to practice during training. And so to make it easier, and it's totally optional, obviously, but if you're interested in this long run fueling log, and I put an example of it's actually what I did when I practiced Mount St. Helens 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I did exactly what I did there. Total just example, obviously, but this was a successful day for me and I documented that. And this is something to build off of. So if you are interested in this template, all you have to do is go to my website and you'll be prompted to sign up for an email list and I'll email it directly to you. So my email, I know we'll go over at the end, but it's just my full name, Maria Dalzot, RD, registereddietitian.com. And I'll send it to you if this will help you as you try to learn and figure out what is the best fuel for my lung, because there's so many variables. There's so many variables out there that it is impossible to give a blanketed statement on what is going to work for you.
I knew that was going to be the answer. Part of me is like, there's just too many variations in each human body. I know that like genetics and human DNA and origins has a lot to do with that too. And a part of me is looking at a lot of elites who are able to, it just seems like, throw garbage into their bodies and yet still run at such an elite level. Is there something different between like an elite athlete and a regular everyday mid-packer, back of the packer, and maybe why we can't eat whatever we want or any of that sort of thing? Or is that even a bad way of looking at it?
Well, so my question is, what's garbage?
Yeah, the garbage is fuel.
No, right? I meant like actual garbage out of a trash can. But like, I would look at, let's say, a giant table full of food, and we have, I mean, it's all the stuff that I look at as special stuff. And again, this is probably me already getting into my issues with food, but like pizzas and cakes and pies and donuts and eating that on a regular basis, is that overindulgent? But an elite athlete being able to just eat that on the regular, is there something different with their bodies, or should I eat that also on the regular?
But are we knowing that's what they're actually eating on the regular?
No. So the question is for Maria, do you have any idea as to how their bodies perform differently?
Well, first of all, again, Kim makes a great point. We only see what we see, right? So we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. And yes, they may be doing that right now, but that might not work in 2 years, in 3 years, in 4 years, in 5 years. So again, your body's going to be changing. And if you're constantly eating, there's nothing wrong with eating pizza every single night, every single day. But chances are you might start to feel a little crummy and you might be wanting a more variety in your diet. You might be wanting something a little fresh and crunchy. And that is ultimately what it comes down to. It's not comparing, what so-and-so is eating. But to answer your question, it might be working for them now, but it might not be working for them later. Also, fueling for a run is way different than fueling for around the run. Your goal for when you're racing is to get from point A to point B without any issues. And that looks different for everybody. You know, a lot of people thrive on gummy bears or candy. Whereas if you were to do that in your day-to-day life, that's not going to get you productively through the workday or through the work week. That's not a sustainable approach. And so in the context of running, that food is fuel. That is calories. That, and I say this sometimes and it gets me in trouble. People call me out, but I say nutrition doesn't matter during the run. And people are like, what do you mean it doesn't matter? It's so important. But what I mean is that's not the time to worry about getting your fiber intake. That's not the time to get your 5-a-day vegetables. This is performance. This is point A to point B without pooping your pants. This is without GI distress. So a lot of the times, before even delving into sport-specific nutrition with people, it's, again, let's step back. What are your patterns around the run? If you're skipping meals, 2 meals a day, or how is that going to impact your run? I don't care what you're eating during the run. It's more important, what are you doing before? What are you doing after? And it's a cumulative effect. Just as you wouldn't do one long run and say, all right, I'm ready to jump into a 100-miler. You wouldn't do that. Just like you wouldn't say, oh, okay, I've eaten, sufficiently today. I'm golden. One day doesn't make or break you. It's your pattern of habits.
Awesome. Kim, I know you have a question.
Tons of questions.
Bring them on.
A question from Connor in the chat room. Connor says, what impact does days of high sugar processed fat junk intake during races have on long-term health?
Thank you, Connor, for the question. And the truthful answer is, I don't know about long-term health. And that's the thing about nutrition. There are very few long-term studies because it is unethical to hold humans in, a contained environment to see what are the effects of these studies. And also a lot of the studies that are done on athletes are done on non-ultra athletes. And so there's a lot of unknowns out there. But again, if we're taking a very reasonable approach, if you're running 1 or 2 ultras a year where you have to focus on eating tons of a concentrated amount of sugar at one time, your bodies are resilient. The stress that you have worrying about the effects of that are much more detrimental than the sugar itself.
I do want to point out that the live chat room is loving the quote, point A to B without pooping your pants. Pretty much the best way to live life. And there's also a great call to make that a t-shirt. And
Yes.
we got to do that. Yes. Marathons, ultramarathons, runs in general are just point A to point B without pooping your pants.
That is a good day.
Which is crazy because that is like my first marathon. Everyone's like, oh man, don't poop your pants. I'm like, that's the thing I'm going to worry about for the rest of my life. And
yep,
that's all. That's every runner's goal.
And then you run an ultra where there's like not a lot of ground cover. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I haven't been there. I don't know what I'm talking
stories
about.
that we don't have. No, we're not talking about personal experiences ever. God, this is fantastic. Now, I know that you've also talked about intuitive eating. Yeah. What is intuitive eating? Why do you talk about that? Why do you delve into that more?
Yeah. So intuitive eating is my way of kind of my guiding. I hesitate to use the word philosophy because I feel like as a practitioner, your philosophy has to change with the science. But my approach right now is intuitive eating, and that is simply an internal regulation of food. So again, we talked about diet culture kind of being this external regulation of who, what, when, what, how we should be eating. And intuitive eating is bringing it back to our innate ability to distinguish what's enough for me. It encompasses mindful eating. We sometimes hear that terminology, but it takes it kind of a step further, but not only eating mindfully, but also eating in a way that is satisfying, which isn't talked about enough. How do I eat in a way that leaves me feeling satisfied, that leaves me not being preoccupied with food or thinking about it all the time? It also incorporates moving our body in a way that feels good to us. And it also includes respecting our body despite of what we think about its shape. And so that is in a nutshell, it's so much more than that, but in a nutshell, that is what intuitive eating is.
I was going to say, I feel like a lot of people probably us included, have a hard time with the last point that you made of respecting your body, regardless of the shape or the shape that we see ourselves as being. And we just had a conversation about this in our house the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's something that I've dealt with again since I was a kid, and especially in the last couple of years. And that's kind of why I asked that earlier in the show, just regarding how I look at my body, how I look at food, and how that sort of changed, or at least it's a long process. It's not going to be an overnight thing. And I know that for anyone watching, like, you're not gonna be able to look at food immediately different. You're not gonna be able to look at your body immediately different, or a scale, or any of these things. But I'm in the process, and it's a long road, and
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm sorry.
Absolutely. And thinking about eating is a form of self-care, and even just thinking about how you're, it just takes one little different perception or different switch in your brain. Eating is a form of self-care. It is a way of showing respect. An example would be like, since, we're all about, talking about going to the bathroom tonight, you wouldn't ignore the fact that you have to go to the bathroom. That is a normal physiological need of your body. You shouldn't ignore the fact that you are hungry. That is a way of showing your body respect, by eating when you are hungry, and just knowing that you are of value, and that you are worth it. You are worth working on this. And again, this is you hit it. This is not a one and done conversation. This is something that takes constant, again, it's that value that takes constant fostering and constant support. And that's a lot of the times when I meet with people, it's nutrition therapy. There's a lot of tears. There's a lot of crying. Oftentimes right out the bat, and people are quick to, oh, I'm so sorry. And it's okay, because so often we're told what to do. We're talked at to instead of listened to, and to be told, you are valued just as you are. You do not have to change your shape. You do not have to change a thing about you. It is such a release for people. And I think so many need that constant support, that to know that you are valued. You do not need to change the shape of your body. You do not need to do anything to deserve it, to eat well, to nourish your body, and to eat in a way that's satisfied. If you want an ice cream, at Tuesday afternoon, just because you feel like it, do it. Go do it. Everyone go get an ice cream after this.
Deal. Well, let me ask this. Is there such a thing as overeating?
So yes, because, often, we've all done it. We've all eaten past the point of comfortable fullness. It doesn't feel good, right? And so the question is, how do I eat in a way that feels good? Why am I eating past the point of comfortable fullness? And again, sometimes it's because it's a holiday and we're eating foods that we love. Totally fine. Who cares? One day. If you're constantly overeating and not feeling comfortable, it's time to look at patterns. Are you skipping meals? Most often the case is that you're arriving to a meal too hungry. And that's all it is that you're too hungry. And it's so hard to listen to those fullness cues when you're just starving. And that's just your body saying, I need food. That's one reason. The second reason will come back to me. It just was fleeting, but that's one thing, is oftentimes people arrive to a meal too hungry. Oh, that's what it is. Deprivation. If you deprive yourself, oftentimes that backfires. If you put this food up on a pedestal, and it's this, forbidden fruit, and all of a sudden you can have it, say, and I'm calling out the holidays just because it's a really great example, oh, it's the holiday and my grandma's making pumpkin pie, and this is the only time of the year, and I'm so full after my meal, but I have to eat this pumpkin pie because this is the only time I'm allowed to have it. And so you overeat it. You feel gross. What happens? Oh, never again. I'm not eating it for 365 days. What happens is you have permission to say, I'm too full to eat that right now. I can eat it tomorrow. I can have it for breakfast. I can have it for lunch the next day. I can have it for dinner. Giving yourself permission to eat all foods at all times relieves that necessity to have that Last Supper mentality of, oh, I gotta eat it now because the restriction's coming.
I love looking at it like that. It's so easy to just, I think I follow into that pursuit of like depriving of food, not realizing it, but.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that like on a smaller scale too, it's like long run Saturday, long run Sunday, Sunday night, big
Gorge.
dinner, like
Yeah.
whatever that it happens to be. And then you like, we do this often. Like you gorge on it. One, because you've been working
Running
your butt off.
Right.
You're outside eating.
But also you kind of like, it's easy to fall in the mentality of like Sunday night, it's going down. Like, and then all week long, you're like, gotta wait for Sunday, gotta wait for Sunday.
Okay. And that's great. And that would be something where I take is why do you feel you're using running as permission to do that? Instead of giving yourself permission, hey, it's Thursday night. Let's make this, we have time together, our schedules meld well together. Let's make a big dinner together. Let's enjoy this. Taking away taking the food away from a pedestal loses its excitement. It becomes mundane. Challenge yourself, have pizza on a Tuesday, all these little food rules, which that's what they are. They're rules that we've unintentionally set up in our brains that are kind of dictating things. Challenge them. Just like I talked to this show, like I'm going to challenge my anxiety, challenge those food rules. Go when you think, oh, I shouldn't, do it. See what happens. Your butt's not going to fall off, I promise. Right?
I want to throw some trends at you and get your hot takes on them. Because I know we've been getting a lot of... Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I was going to say, can we name some of the trends that people have kind of thrown into questions?
Yeah.
So we've had questions regarding intermittent fasting, primal blueprint diet, which I'm not familiar with. Keto is another one.
Let's start with elimination dieting. So pulling something out.
Yep. Again, a slippery slope to disordered eating. It's really easy to take things away, which can be detrimental and worrisome because you could be missing out on super important nutrients that are vital for your health. It's really easy to be like, oh, I heard that this is bad for me, so I'm going to take that out. It's a lot easier to have the elimination mindset than what can I add into my diet? It's a lot easier if I would just stand up here tonight and be like, everybody, stop eating sugar, stop eating gluten, and your health will you're going to live forever. That's way easier. Oh, I just have to go home and clean this out and not buy this. I don't have to think about it again. But instead, I'm going to be like, I want you to eat more fruits, more vegetables, more plant-based protein, more fiber. And then it's all of a sudden, well, how much? When? Do I eat cooked or raw? I don't have the money to buy this. I don't have the time to cook it. It creates a lot more questions than answers. Again, it's a lot easier to take away. But again, I hesitate doing the taking away because it again becomes a slippery slope to what else do I need to take away? I'm not feeling better yet. What else do I need to take away? When what left is there to eat? But rather, and this is where it's helpful. This is hard. It's not easy to do by yourself because when you're in it, it's really hard to zoom out. So working with somebody to be like, what are your eating patterns? Let's forget about what you're eating. I don't care about what you're eating. I care about why you're eating and how you're eating. Are you eating consistently? Are you eating regularly? Are your meals and snacks balanced in a way that's satisfying to you? Let's start there before you start taking things away without needing to.
Keto, going into ketosis, eating meat, reducing carbs, and having very strict.
My first question is why? I want to know why you want to do this. Sorry.
I'll read the question that was asked specifically about keto. It says, I have been trying the keto diet so I can run longer without needing to fuel, and wanted to get Maria's take on that.
Okay. I want you to eat in a way that will fuel your body for the rest of your life. And there are very small, limited studies that show that might work in the short term, but performance-wise, people on a keto diet are not at an athletic advantage. And please throw me some studies. I'm open. Just if you find something that you want me to take a look at and critique, but there are no studies that show that having a keto diet will give you an athletic advantage. My second question is this in alignment with your values? Are you happy? Do you feel you need to have cheat meals? Are you really never going to have pizza or cake or ice cream for the rest of your life? Are you not going to do it? And when you do it, are you going to experience feelings of guilt, shame, and, like you failed? These are the questions that I want to ask you.
Yep.
And the adaptation of using fat as fuel, it's not like your body is an on or off switch. Okay, now we're going to go into fat. Now we're going to go into carbs. It is a continuum. And so as you train, you're naturally going to be more adapted to using fat as fuel. As you train for endurance runs, your body is going to be more efficient. And on that note, and I know I'm kind of going into another topic, we have people who are in the carb camp versus the fat camp. My thought is, why not be efficient at burning both fuels? Just as you practice with training, you practice long runs, you practice speed, you practice intervals. Why just practice with one source of fuel? You might be in a situation where if you've been eating predominantly high fat, high protein, and you get to an aid station and you are bonking, you are just desperate for something, and everything at the table is something your body's like, we haven't had this in so long, I don't know what's going on. Aren't you better off putting fuel in your body where your body's like, I know how to use this, let's use this. I know how to use this, let's use this. So being metabolically efficient is being able to use not just carbs, not just fat, but everything. Doesn't that sound, it sounds a lot easier to me anyway, rather than being so hyper focused on one nutrient, but having your body being able to use everything.
What about fasting?
Oh goodness. Again, it's the same thing. It's a diet. Why do you want to fast? What are your perceived benefits of fasting? And in what context? Are it fasting for like doing training runs fasted versus are you fasting days? There's there's so many different nuance to that. But point blank, it's a diet, and I want to know why first and foremost. I want to know why. I want to know what your thoughts and beliefs are around that. And again, it's different than sports nutrition. There are some benefits that say on maybe some easy runs where time is not, a big factor, where you don't have to, the intensity is low, where you can do a run in a quote unquote fasted state. This might be skipping breakfast. That's fine. But doing that day after day after day, your body's not able to recover. And again, going back to outside the scope of running, we want everything to be working in tip-top shape. Ultimately, we want your immune system to be up to par. We want to, hold off any type of chronic diseases, cancer, heart disease. Ultimately, again, that's a big assumption for me. Health is not an obligation to anybody, but I'm assuming we all want to live our best lives on and off the trails.
Go ahead.
Oh, can we just hit on that one last one that I mentioned,
Go ahead.
which I'm not familiar with? And so,
the primal.
Yeah. Scott in the chat room said, started the Primal Blueprint diet 2 years ago, and I love the reduced inflammation and ability to run long consecutive days. Increased training to 15 plus hours, now need more carbs. Is this normal?
Yes, I would say it's normal. Again, your body is constantly adapting and honoring that response. If you think you need carbs, do it. I hesitate. First of all, when somebody has a diet and it works for them, great. I'm not here to tell you, what you can and cannot do, but I don't want you to get so hooked on it that you're not listening to, hey, wait a minute, this isn't working for me anymore. Sometimes people and I've seen it with like vegetarians, where they're shamed to be like, oh, I started eating meat or something like that, where we put labels on things and that becomes our identity. That I just want you to feel like it can be this fluid state. It doesn't have to be something that you're sucked into. And I'd rather it not be. If that's working for you now, great. But if you notice that, hey, I need more variety in my diet, I'm not satisfied, I'm not alert on my runs anymore, I need some carbohydrates, do it. That is, again, respecting your body, listening to yourself, and that is going to ultimately suit you in the long run.
Go ahead.
I feel like this could be like a 10-hour show. People are already like, Maria should be a monthly guest.
I knew that was gonna. I told Maria before the show, I was like, we could talk for hours.
Yeah, it's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I have a question of like, how, what is your advice for folks to, with lack of a better term, digest everything we're seeing on social media. We're seeing like this elite athlete is doing this. Maybe that's what I should be doing. Or you're seeing the diet fads, the diet teas, the flat belly teas, and the
we're constantly inundated with this stuff.
It's everywhere,
diet
right?
culture. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. We're seeing all of this stuff happen. It's great. I think that's kind of where we'll wrap the show up to, is what is your advice to those who may be watching or listening, and how to approach this in the future?
If you're looking to detox something, detox your social media. I mean, Marie Kondo that shit. I mean, if something's not bringing you joy, get rid of it. If something is triggering to you, I don't care if they're an elite athlete. They're not you. You don't have their genes. You don't have their DNA. You don't have some people are, the three of us, we're never going to be Jim Walmsley. So they are not the expert of you. We should not be comparing ourselves.
Speak for yourself.
I'm just telling you like it is. But, we're not, I'm never going to be Courtney DeWalter. I'm never going to be Shalane Flanagan. So I can look at them for inspiration, but I'm not going to be like, oh, I should start eating the way she is, because we don't say the same thing about how they run. Oh, Jim's running 130 miles a week. I better do that. Well, that'd be silly. We're not thinking in those terms. And so, and I joke about detoxing your social media, but I'm serious as a heart attack about that. Going through and saying, this is really triggering to me. And I've done it myself. There are people that, fellow ultra runners that I follow, that I have to be like, you know what? This is really triggering to me. This is making me feel less than. This is making me feel like what I do isn't good enough. This is not helping my mental health, and I unfollow them. It's not that I don't want to support their running. It's just that is not helpful for my mental health. And so it can be hard to do, but I tell you what, it makes so much difference. So going through and seeing, this makes me feel like I'm less than. This makes me feel like I'm not valued. This makes me feel like I don't look a certain way. And also on that note, sometimes in our wonderful, awesome ultra trail, mountain running, just running in general community, we get stuck in a bubble and we think everybody has this life. And the truth is, a lot of people think we're crazy. So many people don't have this lifestyle. And so having a variety in your social media, different body sizes, different likes. I mean, fill your feed with things that bring you joy. Like, if puppies bring you joy, find puppies, comedians, things that are provide variety in just everything, so that we're not sucked in like, this is how it should be. This is what I should be doing. Does that make sense?
Marie Kondo, that shit.
Yeah. We need another t-shirt now.
We've already got 2 t-shirts out of tonight's show. This is a great episode.
That was great advice, though. Like,
for sure.
Because we've talked about it a number of times, where like we surround ourselves and inundate ourselves with this type of social media, and it becomes, you start to feel like this is normal. This is everybody is doing this. Yeah. Everybody looks like this. And outside of that, there are puppies and there are comedians.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The total side note too is like, you'll see individuals who are doing a certain thing and it's working really well for them, and then how anti everything else that those individuals can get. And it's also another sort of like toxicity level to this whole thing, where if you are doing something with your diet or your approach to food is a specific way and not being open to other approaches to food, it's detrimental, I think, to the overall outlook on food and health.
Definitely doing a disservice to
other people. And I just want to thank you, Maria, for being a celebrator of food, because I feel like that's kind of how this show turned out. I didn't know. I mean, I knew that Maria knows what she's talking about. It was going to be a great guest. I knew all of this, but I also didn't realize just how much I'm like, I can't wait to just like enjoy food again.
That means so much to me. I mean, then I've done my job. That is my job right there. That means everything. Thank you.
And I guarantee you that viewers of this and listeners of this will have, even if it's for 24 hours, just go, hell yeah. Like, I'm going to go enjoy myself.
Elena in the chat room says, my perception of how to view food has totally changed after listening to Maria.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
So it's a testament to your passion, because I know that this has been a long passion of yours and it's a career. We are going to wrap up the main show here with Maria, but we are going to have her join us in the after show for a couple of minutes. We're going to have some residual questions. Kim's pulled a bunch aside here. But before we do, I want this conversation to continue. Obviously, in the after show, we will. But if you are an individual watching or listening to the show and you want to get in touch with Maria, how can people get in touch with you?
Super easy to get hold of. It's my full name on Instagram, Maria Dalzot. On Twitter, it's Maria Dalzot RD. Same with the website. And again, don't forget, if you are interested in this template to help you kind of start journaling what works for you and what doesn't during the long run, just either contact me. If you don't want to sign up for the email, you don't have to do anything. I'm here as a resource for you. I'm here to help you, again, be the expert of you. And so, again, I'm super easy to get hold of. I got OCD from my father and anxiety from my mother. So I will be honest.
I love that. And you do take clients and
yes, I do.
Is that like a monthly thing or is it?
Yep, everything can be found on my website. My consulting business is called Inspired Eating. Again, it's getting people to be excited about food again with this, again, an intuitive eating approach, non-diet mentality, not weight-centric at all. I do consults, and I'm also starting to take on running clients as well. But again, any questions, please don't hesitate to shoot them my way. Super easy to get hold of me via my website or any of the social media channels.
Fantastic. Now, you are a first-time guest on the show. Long overdue, because this conversation was so great.
I'm so excited. This is like a dream.
So one thing we like to do with all of our first-time guests is say goodbye. Okay, goodbye, Maria. No, I'm just kidding. The Quickie Question Quiz. It's basically a rapid series of very easy questions, somewhere in the range of 8 to 37 questions. I don't know. You answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. You let me know when you're ready by giving me a thumbs up, and we'll get right on through.
I'm so ready.
What was your very first race?
The very first race was the September Stride 5K in Morgantown, West Virginia. I was 10 or 11 years old.
Favorite place to run currently?
Oh, man. I wasn't ready for this one. Well, it better be Mount St. Helens because I'm going there Saturday.
Road or trails?
Trails.
Bucket list race?
It'll be the race I'm actually running this year. I'm running the OCC, the sister race of UTMB, at the end of August. So to be a part of the UTMB weekend, I'm pretty stoked.
Favorite running movie?
Forrest Gump.
Guilty pleasure TV show?
Guilty Grey's Anatomy, but awesome TV show, Fleabag. Have you seen it?
Fleabag's so good.
It's so good.
That show.
Yeah, super, super good. Favorite pre-race meal?
Morning of, it's definitely bread or bagel and trail butter.
Post-race food item?
What I crave the most after being on the trails all day, sushi. All day, every day, sushi, breakfast, lunch, dinner, sushi. It's always sushi. Yeah.
All right. Can we have sushi and pizza for dinner?
Yeah.
Current running kicks?
I'm really loving the La Sportiva Captiva. It's a lightweight trainer that I've just been really digging. It's what I'm going to be racing in on Saturday.
Sweet. We actually had a couple people recommend that.
Cool.
Congratulations, Maria!
Yay!
You win. You win the Tiger Claw Trophy. Yeah, right there, right behind you. What a delightful show, Maria. You are fantastic, and your passion is obvious and it's contagious. I honestly can't wait for dinner. Like, I actually can't wait to eat tonight. But we really, really appreciate everything that you were dropping tonight on the main show here. And we're going to have Maria join us in the after show as well. So thank you, Maria, for joining us.
Yes, thank you, guys. Thank you, Ginger and her crew.
Absolutely. Now comes the fun part in the show. Our last segment that we've been doing at the end of every show, our GR Crew Member of the Week. We like to recognize a member of the community who has gone above and beyond or faced a wall or a challenge head on and has conquered that. Kim, who is our GR Crew Member of the Week?
I am very excited for this one. This week's GR Crew Member of the Week is Angie Hollingworth.
Nice.
Angie writes, 3 years ago, I did run Melbourne 10K in the middle of chemo and still got my goal time. Today was a rematch, but it wasn't. Had surgery 12 weeks ago, and then my piriformis started playing up 3 weeks after the perfect training run. I roll. She says, so today with a sore calf, unimpressed thigh, numbness down the whole back of my leg, and overall lack of fitness, we did the 10K again. Didn't get my PB, but did run the last 200 meters through the finish arch. with total numb foot that I couldn't feel strike the ground. I'll totally take it. What a great race. Congratulations, Angie.
Congratulations, Angie. You are a GR Crew Member of the Week. We will continue to do that every week, celebrating members of the community, the viewing audience who support us and inspire us in many, many ways. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 269. Our guest, Maria Dalzot, was just dropping the knowledge. Marie Kondo that shit, and point A to B without shitting your pants. Pretty much one of the funnest shows in a long time. So we'll have Maria join us in the after show. If you'd like to join us in the after show, after every Monday's episode, we also go live with our GR crew. It's very easy to do. You just got to go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner for as little as $1. That's it. Every month. Then you get to support us and you get to have some fun in the after shows as well. It's a pretty good perk for like nothing. So we appreciate you all, and we'll see you next week for more Ginger Runner Live. Am I forgetting anything?
I don't think so.
Cool. Get out there, train hard, race harder, part of the hardest. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Goodbye.